bent. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going?
We are going to another episode of HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in today. This is the show that values time and puts God first. Appreciate you guys so much for being here. Excuse me. So let's get into it. So we have to start today with just the appreciation of how great a basketball we saw last night. Last night was one of the best nights of basketball we've seen in a long, long time. I know Celtics fans don't want to hear that, but last night was just an incredible, between the Celtics-Knicks game 1 and Nuggets OKC game 1, just some incredible basketball all night. As a fan of the sport, if you don't love nights like last night, I just don't think you like the game of basketball. That simple. You don't love what we saw last night from some of the best players, some of the best teams. This is why the playoffs are the playoffs. Best teams, best players. It's so fun to watch. Lots of love, okay? So let's start with this. OKC Denver. Now, OKC, I think, is clearly the best team. I think OKC is deeper than Denver. I think OKC, top to bottom, is better than Denver. The coach mismatch, I think, is there in OKC's favor. This is why I keep talking about how incredible Jokic is, because there's no reason Denver should be in this series. OKC has a better coach. OKC has a better bench. OKC has the MVP. OKC has top to bottom the better roster. OKC is the better defensive team. OKC shoots better. Denver is, and you saw it last night, Nikola Jokic, 40-plus points, 20-plus rebounds, getting his teammates involved. He is just a force unto himself. And when I discuss the all-time great players, this is what they can do. When they have no business being in the series, when they have no business their team being where they're at, this is very reminiscent of those LeBron Cleveland teams who were never, quote-unquote, finals teams, but LeBron could drag them to the finals. This is, again, go look at the numbers. I'm not trying to start up debates here. Look at what Jordan did as far as scoring, his scoring versus the rest of his teammates scoring. Look where he got his teams. Look at Magic's the one that you would say, okay, well, he had Kareem, so he never really played without another all-time great talent. But this is what the all-time great players can do. Jokic is dragging a team that should not be here. Because besides him, where's the edge? What do they do better than OKC that should dictate, oh, they're clearly up 1-0 in this series, or they should clearly win this series, or realistically this series should even be competitive? What do they do besides employ Nikola Jokic? So his greatness right now is single-handedly carrying this Nuggets team. Again, I said this when I came into the playoffs. My prediction on both sides of the bracket. Now, I don't have the Nuggets going to the title, but I said him, Giannis, both have a chance to move themselves up an all-time ladder if they can take these clearly not finals-ready teams and get them there. Obviously, Giannis, that didn't work out. That, fell out after the first round is what it is. But Jokic to be not only get his team through a Game 7 that he just played 2 days ago, and then to come back on Game 1 and give you that kind of performance, again, ask yourselves, what does Denver do better than OKC? Because it's not shooting, it's not defense, it's not depth. And again, Jokic is clearly the better player, but OKC has the MVP in SGA. And I'm just watching that game, and it's the whole time they're down 8, they're down 10. They get within 3. OKC pushes up to 8, pushes back up to 10. And it just felt like that was the entire flow of the game. And they get to the fourth quarter, and Jokic is just imposing his will, forcing what he wants on OKC. He's getting to the free throw line. They're getting switches. He's got smaller guys. He's backing them down, getting inside the paint. He's hitting threes. He's doing everything you can possibly do to win that game, with maybe his only mistakes being missing a handful of free throws in the fourth quarter. So his dominance, his greatness, the only reason the Nuggets are in this series. Now, do I think they could beat OKC? I'm not going to put anything past him. I'm not going to say that he can't have an all-time series and that he can't will the Nuggets past the Thunder. Do I think they're better than the Thunder? Absolutely not. And I think that's going to be really evident. I think you're going to see a lot of these games where I think game 2, I think the Thunder, not a gambling man, but I think the Thunder are going to boat race them. So whatever the spread is for that game, you put your money, you bet mortgage, you bet on the Thunder. The Thunder are going to boat race them in game 2. They're going to be motivated. They're going to be pissed off they lost in the way they did. And they're going to show, and it's going to be very clear and evident that they are the better team, top to bottom. Better shooters, better defense, all that stuff. I think they're going to boat race them in game 2. But then game 3 through game 7 potentially, I think if Jokic has 3 more of these in him, which he's unique, right? Jokic no one would call a great athlete. He doesn't look the part of your standard great athletic physique. But go look at his career. He has a handful of these where he can put on these 40, 45 minutes in the playoffs, and he never looks, there's the one meme of him looking exhausted, but he never looks like he's incapable of doing this. When they ask him to put on heavier minutes, when they ask him to put on, when they're requiring this much out of him to run the offense, to be the force that he is. And I also want to say this about him. This idea that, and everyone's got their own interest, everyone has their own life outside of what they do, so I don't hold this against him. But this is just nice to see. We want to see our athletes care. These guys are multimillionaires. They got $100 million in the bank. And sometimes they do, which is their right. It looks like this is their job. Sometimes they look a little detached. They don't look as intense. We want to see our athletes look like this matters. Because as fans, what fan is short for fanatics, we're crazy. We're sitting in our living room, or we're sitting there at our house and we're screaming, or you're at a bar, or you're at a friend's house watching the game. You're screaming, your emotions are getting your emotions are getting up there. You're excited. You're acting crazy in your own right. So we want to see these guys care. And what we're seeing with Jokic this postseason, you can see that he cares. We're seeing him in the huddle. He's screaming at guys. He's getting on guys. He's saying, hey, man, this matters. We've seen some of the quotes that have come out saying if you're not excited or you can't get yourself motivated at this time of the year to play basketball, then you don't really love basketball. And again, the thing around Jokic, one of the consistent storylines, and he's earned it because it's the way that he has acted. He's not really into it. Oh, he's more into horses than basketball. Oh, basketball's his second job. Basketball's his second love. You are starting to see, especially in this playoff run and towards the end of the regular season, he absolutely cares. He's absolutely motivated. And he is such an all-time great player, such an all-time great force that he might single-handedly will this team, which is they are clearly not the better team in this series, and he might just will them to winning this series against the Oklahoma City Thunder. So shout out to Nikola Jokic. Shout out to the great night of basketball. Yes, Aaron Gordon hit the game-winning 3, but that game was won because of the best basketball player in the world, Nikola Jokic. Moving on from Nikola Jokic. Now, I'm not someone who believes that just because you're going to hear this throughout the next couple of weeks, every team that loses, well, what do they need to do to win a championship? And you're going to hear every bad take. You're going to hear every bad trade scenario. you are going to hear everything that is just wrong with sports. So, I'll take two young teams, right? The Detroit Pistons and the Houston Rockets. And all everyone's talking about now is, who do you need to trade for to get to that next step? Do you go get, if you're Houston, we've heard Kevin Durant, we've heard Giannis. Detroit, who should you go trade for? Who do you want to pair up with Cade? Listen, the Phoenix Suns and the Brooklyn Nets are perfect examples of real-time NBA teams that had built a culture, had built a core of players, and then decided, because of a playoff run that didn't go as far as they would have liked, pressed the button and said, let's go get a star. Let's trade away our culture. Let's trade away our depth. Let's trade away our role players. And let's go in big for the star. And look where both of those teams are now. The Nets, lack of draft picks, lack of culture, and a lack of stars. The Phoenix Suns, plenty of stars, but no culture, no coach, no playoffs, no lottery pick. And they're both, right now, if you were to say who are your top 10 dysfunctional franchises in the NBA, they're making the list, and they're going to be real high on the list. Don't try to rush the process. If you're Houston, you didn't get here by forcing stars onto this team. You're Detroit. You didn't get here by forcing stars onto this team. What is, and I love Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is one of the greatest players I've ever seen with my own eyes. Kevin Durant's not your answer. Kevin Durant is not your hero. Kevin Durant is not your savior. What is your savior is that you have shown as a franchise to be able to draft, develop, coach, get a culture. Why blow that all up for Kevin Durant? And that's with Kevin Durant, great player. Still, at his age, amazing player. I said this, Tony and Will pushed back on me. Giannis, one of the best players in the history of the game. I wouldn't do it for Giannis either. Don't try to microwave this process. I'm a Pelicans fan. I saw with Anthony Davis. He was so good early, the Pelicans tried to microwave the process of how good or how great can we get, because we saw this guy be great by the end of year one. That they went out and got Drew Holiday. They went out, signed Ryan Anderson, traded away all these draft picks. They tried to microwave the process. They didn't want to sit there and let it cook. Houston, you have a culture. You have your guys. Just adding Kevin Durant isn't going to fix it. Trading away your draft picks ain't going to fix it. You've got Thompson. You've got your free agent signings in Van Fleet and Dylan Brooks, who bring that veteran, that tough guy, the leadership, and some scoring in Van Vliet. You've got Thompson. You got Jalen Green. You got Sengun. Why blow up what you have? You were the 2 seed. Kevin Durant missed the playoffs. Giannis was out in the first round. You know who didn't try to cheat the process or try to microwave the process? The Boston Celtics, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Yeah, they signed free agents, but their free agents are Isaiah Hartenstein, a big, not a Kevin Durant or a Giannis or trying to inject a star. The Boston Celtics, Tatum, Brown. Yeah, they signed Drew Holiday or traded for Drew Holiday, but they got him on a trade that did not require them to give up a lot. Same with Kristaps. Same with Derek White. They didn't make these. Now, they look like big moves now because they've had the results, but they weren't there trading, when everyone's saying, when LeBron was beating them during his end of his second tenure in Cleveland, and everybody's saying trade either Tatum or Brown, you don't need both, try to get another star to pair with them. They didn't listen. They didn't trade away their culture. They didn't trade away their best players. They didn't trade away their young guys to try to get a superstar in right away. And guess who's the 2 best teams in the NBA? The defending champion Boston Celtics and the 68-win juggernaut that is the Thunder. If you already have your role players, your young players, your potential stars, your culture, your coach, Don't try to microwave it by forcing Kevin Durant in or forcing Giannis Antetokounmpo in. And Durant and Giannis are great. And Giannis, I'm probably going to get more pushback on because Giannis is 30. And so the idea that he is still going to be this super high-end level impact all-NBA MVP guy, obviously much longer than Durant. Teams are going to obviously talk themselves into that. But if I'm Houston or Detroit, keep my team the way it is. Don't microwave it. You'll get there on your own time. I promise you. Oh, man, so much to talk about when we come back. Knicks, Celtics. The Celtics set the record for the most missed threes ever in an NBA game, an NBA playoff game. And I'm going to tell you why that shit doesn't matter whatsoever, plus much more. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. This is the show that values time and puts God first. Appreciate you guys so much for being here. Excuse me. So let's get into it. So we have to start today with just the appreciation of how great a basketball we saw last night. Last night was one of the best nights of basketball we've seen in a long, long time. I know Celtics fans don't want to hear that, but last night was just an incredible between the Celtics Knicks game 1 and Nuggets OKC game 1. Just some incredible basketball. All night as a fan of the sport. If you don't love nights like last night, I just don't think you like the game of basketball. That simple. You don't love what we saw last night from some of the best players, some of the best teams. This is why the playoffs are the playoffs. Best teams, best players. It's listener to my team, you'll get on time. I promise you.
Oh yeah. So when Tony, you was kind of talking about
Like my nigga, why you recording a baby shower on your stomach? What angle is this?
that shit is crazy. All right, let's go.
Two plates.
Ain't no. I'm not putting sour cream on nothing. First of all, that's not happening. If you think I'm using the sour cream at a freak off, first of all, if you think I'm eating any like nah, that's not.
The food is the crazy part. I mean, the food is just open, like it's just
If you
there.
think I'm just gonna assume everything roofie.
Everybody ass naked in here, stuff
Sweating and
touching
shit.
stuff, and the food just open.
Like a nigga pulling out being strong to go grab a spoonful of rice or some shit. Like this shit is crazy.
Nigga, ask you, do you want something? While you in there with two other people, y'all want anything?
What you say? He waiting in line for the train eating the motherfucking taquito or some shit.
That nigga got to play the yellow rice and beef. Talking about, let me know when y'all finish.
Hey, when his turn come up, he tell the nigga, "Hey, hold this."
He hurry up, start eating the shit off spit.
Yeah, he see he's coming up. He eat fast as shit.
Like my nigga.
Oh man, with that. Sorry, I laugh every time I see that shit. Oh man, don't forget to go check out Group Chat every Sunday. Here, one of the many shows got the HardFoul Network. 90 feet back this week, as well as A&M. Appreciate you guys as always. So, excuse me. So, Boston lost last night, right? And I tweeted Boston and I still feel very confident about this. Boston is clearly the better team than New York. Now, I know I said OKC is clearly a better team than Denver, but the Knicks don't have Nikola Jokic. Jalen Brunson is a really good player. Jalen Brunson is the clutch player of the year. Shout out to him and all that he has been able to accomplish. And New York is a good team, but I think they have no chance in this series. Look, this is who Boston is, and everybody is going to try to convince themselves that this is the way to beat Boston. But to quote Tony, none of these teams scare me in the East. Boston can potentially beat themselves, which they did last night, going 15 of 60 from three. But these teams cannot beat Boston. Boston, the rest of the series, is not going to have another game where they shoot that bad. In fact, they're going to have games where they shoot twice as good, if not even a little bit better. And the Knicks have realistically no chance. Yes, and even you even saw it in the post-game interview, right? they interview Jalen Brunson and they go, hey, how do you know this team shoots a lot of threes? How do you feel you're able to contain them? And he says, well, they take a lot and sometimes they miss a lot. That's all we got. Sometimes they'll just miss. Not that we have a game plan for when they are shooting well. Just, shoot a lot of threes. You're going to miss a lot of threes. Okay. Look, yes, I could sit here and say Jason Tatum should be more aggressive going to the hole, especially when he has a Jalen Brunson, a guy who's clearly smaller, clearly can't guard him. He should be going to the hole more. I should say that Jaylen Brown should be more aggressive. There's all these different things you could say. And by definition, I'm wrong on the series because I said Celtics in 4. But again, that would be being dishonest. That would be being disingenuous. The Knicks have no realistic way of winning this series, in my opinion. This is like the only thing you could add to the Celtics this series as far as like pressure is, some people make self bets where no one challenges them, no one says anything. They just randomly throw out, man, I bet you $100 they couldn't do this. And it's like no one engaged with you, no one challenged you. You just threw out the bet. You did a one-sided bet. That's the level. Now you only do that kind of thing when you are supreme confidence. I would do a one-sided bet on this Celtics team, especially in this series. Yes, do I think there's a chance the Cavs give them an honest playoff series in the Eastern Conference Finals? And we're going to get to Cleveland, Indiana shortly. Yeah, that's debatable. I think Cleveland having home court, Cleveland having really good depth. They don't have the high-end level that Boston has with Tatum and Brown, but have really good depth 1 through 8. Donovan Mitchell is one of the more underrated guys in the NBA. Yes, that I think is a valid series. That I think could be a really fun matchup. Do I think the New York Knicks in any way, shape, and or form could challenge them? No, I don't. I just don't think that's feasible. I don't think it's realistic. And I think if it's not exactly what happened last night, like last night is the only way that the New York Knicks win games in this series, and that is the Celtics have to struggle shooting the basketball. Not that the Knicks defend them well, not that the Knicks played great, but the Celtics have to struggle. And if you're in a position where the other team has to struggle, it's not really based on how good or great or some amazing game plan or scheme. No, I just need the other team to play poorly, coach poorly, etc. You're in a bad spot. So again, there's a bunch of things you could say, and a bunch of people are going to come on today and say a whole bunch of stuff about, oh, the Celtics this, Celtics that, oh, this is why they can't win, or Celtics in 5, man. Celtics in 5. I'm not going to act shocked, surprised, or oh my gosh, if this series the Celtics win the next 4 games and they win them all convincingly, because New York, and it's unfortunate because New York built a team theoretically to beat the Celtics. And if you just look at starting 5s, the Knicks have a great starting 5, which if you want to go that toe-to-toe with the Celtics starting 5, there's some arguments there. I still think the Celtics have a better starting 5, but the Knicks have an argument. But depth, and Thibodeau doesn't really play that many guys anyway off his bench. This is why his starters all rack up heavy minutes. The Celtics are deeper. They have Pritchard coming off the bench, Al Horford experience. They're the better shooting team. They're the better defensive team. They are arguably the better coach team. I respect Tibbs, but we can't discredit what Mazzulla's been doing there. Celtics in 5. Like we're just not gonna act like this is a real blueprint on how to beat the Boston Celtics. I'm not gonna do that. It is that time of the show where we invoke the not serious rule. That is the things that are going on in sports, whether stuff people say or headlines out there that I just don't think are serious. In the first one, and I know this has been a recurring thing, but it's just funny every time I hear it. Jim Harbaugh saying almost anything about Justin Herbert, we just shouldn't. It's just not a real comment. Look, so Jim Harbaugh doing an interview talking about these draft picks, the guys they just drafted, the running back, And they obviously take Joe Alt, the offensive tackle last year. They took Omarion Hampton, the running back at UNC. And he's like, these draft picks are going to get Justin Herbert to the Hall of Fame. Can Justin Herbert just win a playoff game first? Like, I think Justin Herbert is talented. I think Justin Herbert is a really good quarterback. We're going to do in hour 2 a top 10 list. And shock, surprise, Justin Herbert's on the top 10. So he is clearly a Pro Bowl level, better than that quarterback. He obviously has all the arm talent in the world. He is a really good player, but can we just get some accolades before we want to say, oh, he's a Hall of Famer? Can we get some accolades before we say he's one of the best in the league outright? And again, Jim, this is one of the reasons Jim loved the job, is that he thought Herbert was amazing. And that's fantastic, because your coach needs to believe in your quarterback. And almost, I'll say this, Charger fans, because they're going to say that I'm hating, it is better long term that your coach is delusional about your quarterback. Like, that's actually good for you, because that'll lead, that's what you want. But it just doesn't mean that his commentary and the stuff he says about them, we have to view as serious at all. He's going to think Justin Herbert's the greatest in the world, and he should. He's his head coach. But this idea that, again, can we get a playoff game? Like, I'm not saying you got to win a Super Bowl to prove that you're good, but can we get a playoff game? Can we not throw, 3 interceptions all regular season and then 3 in the postseason game to a struggling Houston team that had a horrible end to the year? Can we just do that? Like, I'm not taking anything that Jim Harbaugh says about Justin Herbert with any kind of seriousness. I'm sorry. I'm just not doing it. The other one, I saw a bunch of people making think pieces out of this is Abdul Carter asked for Lawrence Taylor's number. So when he first got drafted, there was he went on the show with Micah, and Darius Slay was the other guy, and he was talking about, well, what number do you want to wear in the NFL? And Micah said, 11, and he said, no, I want 56. And then he went and asked Lawrence Taylor, and Lawrence Taylor said, kick rocks. And the actual serious part of the story is I was watching Lawrence Taylor highlights because of this, and oh my gosh, Lawrence Taylor's incredible. Also, not a rational person. So the idea that you were going to get Lawrence Taylor and his behavior and how he is as a human being, yes, one of the greatest defensive players ever, was a monster on the field. All that stuff is true. Also, not the most sane human being on the planet. We know about his history. But people are going like, oh, this is, young kids are too conceited. Oh, they're not trying to make their own, make their own way, this, that, and the third. Bro, Abdul Carter is 22. Because of NIL, Abdul Carter is a 22-year-old millionaire. Abdul Carter, yes, all athletes of this level, especially of that age, are going to have some, and I would prefer this, the kind of confidence that as regular people, we just don't understand. We're not going to understand why Abdul Carter is that confident in himself. But it is the supreme level of confidence that you need to play a professional sport, to play at a high end in the NFL. It's the same thing with Shador. Yeah, it's going to come off as cocky. It's going to come off as overly brash. It's going to come off as, if you don't like him, it's going to be a reason to not like him. But guess what? That's who he is. And as a personal level, I'm not going to put Lawrence Taylor on. So yes, as a football player, Lawrence Taylor is an all-time great, probably one of the 5 best players I've ever seen, maybe the best defensive player I've ever seen. Just a monster on the field. But this idea that this is now a character flaw that I saw people trying to paint it out to be over the last week, that, oh my gosh, can you believe the disrespect? He asked for Lawrence Taylor's number. Bro, he's 22. It's a different world. They're not going to view some of these guys the same way older. Like, if you watched a guy in real time, I've heard all my life that Bill Walton is actually one of the best players ever. He just, because of the injuries, we're never able to see it. I don't have that level of respect for Bill Walton. Not saying he's not a great player, not saying he wasn't really good for his time, but I'm not going to view him the same way as some 40, 50-year-old who watched him play in real time. He used to have to be a 50-year-old now. I'm getting old. So the character assassination on Abdul Carter for asking for a jersey number, not serious, not a real topic. And the last one, and this is not serious, but this is kind of a personal gripe I'm going to throw in there. Could we just officiate OKC the same way we officiate everybody else? This is not an SGA comment. This is not, oh, SGA gets to the free throw line more than anybody. Oh, they're foul baiting. SGA and the Thunder, I don't want you to just single him out. The Thunder in general. The Thunder, they are a physical team. Not taking this away from them. Physical team. Physical as hell. But what that means when you're physical as hell is it invites physicality back. And if you're going to allow them to be physical, you got to allow the other team to be physical a little bit as well. But once the other team starts getting physical, it turns into this, they always say, you don't see the first thing, we always see the second thing, and that's what gets punished. That's what officiating versus the Thunder feels like. That they're going to be super aggressive, physical, they're putting hands on you, they're pushing you, they're shoving you, and then as soon as you respond, now that's the foul. But it's like, we saw this team be physical, be extra aggressive, be extra handsy, and we got no fouls. So when the other team goes, okay, that's what we're doing now, it turns into a foul fest. This could be its own real topic, and we'll see, depending on how this series goes, we'll see if it does. But it's just like, NBA refs, can we be serious? Just, if you're going to allow the Thunder to be physical, allow the other team to be physical back. And like this idea, it's like the elbow to Lou Dort. And I saw some people and things that were like, oh my gosh, Jokic threw an elbow. Have you seen Lou Dort? Go look at Lou Dort's highlight reel, which just primarily consists of players Lou Dort has injured. That's Lou Dort's claim to fame. The guys he's injured. So, let's be serious, please. So, Cavs-Pacers, Game 2 tonight. The Cavs, obviously, shell-shocked, lost Game 1. Here's the thing. And I don't think the Cavs are demonstratively better than the Pacers, the way I think the Celtics are demonstratively better than the Knicks. But I do think and believe the Cavs are better. I think Donovan Mitchell isn't going to go 1 for 11 again from 3. I do think the absence of Darius Garland hurt. That's their point guard, helps their offense. Versus the Pacers, you could see the flow of their offense is much better with Tyrese Halliburton, who, to his credit, Tyrese Halliburton has been playing his ass off. Like, just outright has been playing his ass off. And so, with that, the Cavs, Kenny Atkinson's the coach of the year. The Cavs have as much depth as anyone not named Boston. This is going to be one of those things where, yes, Indiana, you won your first round series against Milwaukee, a team that was just Giannis and a bunch of guys. And you got here, Game 1, you sneak up on the Cavs. But I think in round 2 especially is where we're going to start to see a lot of these teams who are just better. Because again, what's Indiana's advantage? If you're being honest with yourself, what is Indiana's advantage against the Cleveland Cavaliers? Is it coaching? I don't think so. And I love Rick Carlisle. Rick Carlisle is great. Again, Kenny Atkinson was just the coach of the year. That's at least a toss-up, if not Cleveland at least has a fighting chance. Not demonstratively better. Overall talent, Cleveland's got it. Is it bench? Is it depth? Cleveland's got it. Is it your star player? Again, credit to Tyrese Halliburton, who's had an amazing playoffs. Donovan Mitchell is still the best player in this series, and I think that's going to show. And when we see Game 2, you're going to see the longer this goes, the less you can hide the things you're not as good at, the things you're deficient at. And the strengths of teams start to show more and more and more, especially as you get later in these playoffs, you get later in these rounds when it is great versus great. It's no longer good versus good. And Cleveland's great versus Indiana's great. Cleveland just has the better great. So, again, congrats to Indiana, what they've done to this point. I have been the most wrong in Indiana that I've been. So maybe this is a bad luck thing. Maybe, this is Cleveland fans, you should be upset. Maybe this is me, damning your team to be upset in the second round. I've been wrong on pretty much everything I've said about Indiana. But Cleveland, I think the depth, I think the size, I think the talent, I think Donovan Mitchell's going to play better. Congrats to Indiana for starting off this series and winning game 1. But I think this is going to be a Cleveland I'll say Cleveland in 6. Indiana probably gets one more game, especially at home. But I think Cleveland is going to start wrapping this up. And because I think we're heading for Cleveland-Boston Eastern Conference Finals. Again, I would feel the same in the West, except the West has Jokic, all-time player, putting on an all-time performance, and Anthony Edwards, who we're going to have some real conversations if Anthony Edwards is knocking off again. Look at the list of guys he's knocked off. Because if he beats the Warriors, which I fully intend and think they will do, you're going to have Steph, LeBron, Luka, KD, Booker, and Jokic under your resume of guys who've knocked out of the playoffs the last 2 years. I don't think Indiana has an Anthony Edwards, or obviously definitely does not have a Nikola Jokic. So I think Cleveland, the depth, the size, Donovan Mitchell, a lot of that stuff is going to start to show more, and Cleveland's going to start wrapping up the series, even though, yes, they are down 0-1 as things currently stand. This is HardFoul Radio. When we come back, excuse me. When we come back, we are talking Wolves, Warriors. Game 1 of that series starts tonight. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. So we have Wolves Warriors game 1 tonight. There's a lot that's going to happen in this series, man. Look, I think the Warriors and Wolves are currently on two totally different trajectories and two totally different mindsets at the moment. I think if you watch the Warriors, you see the behind the scenes when they walk into the tunnel post beating Houston, the reaction that team gave. Now, Steph is one of the greatest players we've ever seen, the greatest shooter we've ever seen. Love Steph Curry. Maybe the most fun basketball player to watch of the last 20 years. But the way they reacted, the way both of these teams reacted after round 1, I think was extremely telling. The Wolves, Anthony Edwards said, yeah, man, this is great. Everybody thought the Lakers were going to beat us. We kicked their ass. It was even better because everybody was saying Lakers at 5, and we did Wolves in 5. And it was this confidence, and it was this demeanor in which, yeah, we were supposed to do this. Versus the Warriors, it was a lot of, they were screaming, they were overtly excited. You could tell there was some exhaustion there after going 7 with Houston. It felt like for a team that has the pedigree and, again, when you have the accolades that a Steph Curry does, when you have the accolades that a Draymond does, and you have the accolades that a Steve Kerr does, you shouldn't be this excited winning a round 1 series against a really young Houston Rockets team. Now, the Rockets were really good. I thought the Rockets were going to win that series. I was wrong. But it just, the mentality of where Golden State is at currently is it feels like, okay, Steph is going to have to do so much heavy lifting, which is going to be, again, Steph just went through Amen Thompson, and we saw how much, and Dylan Brooks, and we saw how much they put on him. Not even the attacking the hand stuff, but just the constantly denying off ball, having multiple defenders to throw at him. Well, they're going to have the same thing in Minnesota between Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniel. And they're going to have the size advantage inside with Gobert and Julius Randle. I don't know how Golden State wins this, again, outside of Steph just being superhuman. And I love Steph. I do. Again, one of the most exciting players, one of the most fun players to watch, one of the greatest players you've ever seen. But I just don't know how much Steph is ready to handle that again after we saw how exhausting it was after round 1. And for him to come back and do this again in round 2, again, he's going to see you went from Dylan Brooks and Amen Thompson to, I want to make sure, yeah, I'm saying right, Thompson. Yeah, so you went from them to now you're going to be going to Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards. I think Anthony Edwards is on a mission here. I think the Wolves, I'm going to say the Wolves, I think Wolves in 5. I think they're just where they are coming from, and again, how they both viewed their first round series. Minnesota viewed it as, we came here to kick ass, conquer, we beat the Lakers, we could do that again. Golden State, their reaction, what they showed us was, man, we got away with one. And I think that's going to show going into the second round series. Again, I picked Minnesota to go to the NBA Finals. I feel very confident about that. I had them losing, but now that they're my only team remaining from my finals pick, I got them in there. Now, to be fair, and this should be considered, I've gotten a lot of series wrong so far this playoffs. I obviously got, in the East, I got the Celtics right, but I was wrong on Pistons-Knicks. I was obviously Cleveland, but that was an easy one, Cleveland-Miami. I obviously got Indiana-Milwaukee wrong. I got Wolves-Lakers correct, and I got Thunder correct, but I had Clippers over Nuggets. Obviously, I was wrong there. And I had Rockets over Warriors. So, I got the 1 seeds in one other series. So, I've been wrong a lot. I'm 50-50 so far in the playoffs, but hey, man, sometimes it goes like that. Hour 2 starting shortly. This is HardFoul Radio. And we are back. It is hour 2 of HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in today. So, there's been a lot of discussion, maybe the most talked about player, quarterback, and especially when it comes to contracts in the NFL the last handful of years has been Brock Purdy. We obviously all know Brock Purdy, last overall pick in the draft, so he has made pretty much no money for being an NFL player. Obviously still really good salary almost anywhere else you go in the world. But no money as far as being a professional athlete and as far as being a quarterback who has been to multiple conference championship games. Now, anyone who is listening to Tony and I talk about the draft knows my opinion on Brock Purdy. I wouldn't pay Brock. I believe wholeheartedly this is a Kyle Shanahan team. I was willing to draft another quarterback to replace Brock, which some people are going to take that as crazy. Some people are going to take it as not. But here's the thing I think getting lost in this. The reality of, because everyone's now, there's complaining because the Niners are they didn't re-sign Hufanga, they didn't re-sign Greenlaw, and they're going to lose other guys because when you're paying your quarterback, you're going to have to make other financial decisions. Now, they did just sign George Kittle to a huge contract. Fred Warner got his money, and they signed the corner. So there is going to be guys who get paid besides the quarterback, but you have to be smart about this. And that's really what this all comes down to. If good teams can sign their quarterback to a lot of money, not just because their quarterback is great, but because they are good at drafting, they are good at developing, they are a good team, which means more than just the talent you have on the field, you have in your front office, ownership, management, it all comes together. Look at the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens signed Lamar Jackson. And I know there was issues about Lamar when he was trying to sign his contract and they were doing some stuff. But the reality is the Ravens are one of those teams that were most equipped to pay their quarterback high-end money because they draft well, they develop well, there's a culture there, there's good management, there's good coaching. Good teams can do that. And the Niners, really the ultimate test isn't, do you think Brock Purdy is worth $45, $50, $55 million a year? Is, do you think John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and your ownership, are they that good that when you pay your quarterback this kind of money, you will still put out a competitive team year after year? Because here's the thing. The second you pay Purdy, in 2 years, he's going to be out of the top 5 in terms of average annual value, and that's just the way this works. The guys who signed 2 years ago, the guys who signed 3 years ago, everyone's getting paid, and everyone's getting paid so much and so fast that this all works itself out. Again, Mahomes isn't one of the top 6 paid, top 7. I don't think he's in the top 10 anymore as far as highest paid guys. Signed his deal like 3 years ago. No longer in the top 10. That's just how this works. But it's the organizations that can draft, develop, do all the things they need to do. They can afford to sign guys to these super lucrative quarterback contracts. Now, how many, if we were to just ask, again, the Eagles are another perfect example. The Eagles, they could sign Jalen Hurts to pretty much whatever he wants because Howie Roseman is probably the best GM in the sport. And I say probably very loosely. I definitively think he is. So they're going to continue to draft, develop, do what they need to do. They can pay their quarterback a bunch of money and still keep a Super Bowl winning team around him. Now, with that being said, how many teams do we actually think, or how many quarterbacks do we actually think are worth it? Which is a different question. So with that, it's Tuesday. We like to do lists on Tuesday. So how many quarterbacks, if you were just ranking guys, are worth $50 million if we were just going on? So we're just going to do a top 10, and we're going to see when do we hit the would I do it, would I not do it, would I have reservations? So we're going to start number 1 here because we're going to not really a whole lot of suspense. Number 1 quarterback in the NFL, it's still Patrick Mahomes. I know the Chiefs just got their ass kicked in the Super Bowl, and while I loved it, I cherished it, it was a wonderful Sunday. The reality is you can't dispute still what he's done the last 7 years. By far and away the best resume in the sport. By far and away one of the best resumes for any athlete ever. The first 7 years of his career, Mahomes is one, and the answer is obviously yes. Is he worth a $50 million a year quarterback? Easily, you would blank check him and say, whatever we need to do to keep him here, that's what we're going to do. Number 2, I have Josh Allen. Look, I did a lot of pushback on Josh Allen as far as the MVP because I think Lamar had a better season. But if you gun to my head and ask me who's the better player, who's the quarterback I'd want to start with, I would take Allen for some long-term perspective. And again, same way with Mahomes, and Allen just resigned. This is a blank check. This is whatever you want, whatever we got to do to keep you in Buffalo. We're keeping you here. You're our franchise guy, $50 million easily. If it went up to $60 million, you're signing either of these guys. You're blank checking either, top 2. And number 3, Lamar Jackson. And I don't think this is a big gap, by the way. I think these 3 guys specifically, because I do think Mahomes is starting to show some signs of being human, which he hasn't throughout most of his career. So I think these 3 are really close to being, I've always separated Mahomes in like a tier of his own. I think that is starting to be worked out a little bit here, where I think these 3 guys are all going to be considered in the same tier by the end of this year, especially if Mahomes doesn't keep getting to Super Bowls or we see that insane pace start to slow down. But Lamar, I'd blank check him. He should be a 3-time NFL MVP, one of the best players in the history of the sport. He is an offense unto himself. What other superlatives can you say about him? Blank check, Lamar Jackson, 3rd best quarterback in the sport. Now, this one I'm a little hesitant on because it feels like the Bengals did blank check Joe Burrow, and now we've seen the issues that come with that. Yes, they re-signed Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but the rest of that roster is some duct tape and glue and draft picks. So, yes, I would blank check Joe Burrow. I think when on your resume, Mahomes' resume is out of this world. It's the best in the sport, right? Burrow probably has the one single biggest achievement on his resume, though, which is I got the Cincinnati Bengals to the Super Bowl. Some franchises are just naturally dysfunctional. The Bengals are one of them. He got the Cincinnati Bengals to the Super Bowl. Blank check, Joe Burrow, 50, 60. By the time this gets up to 70, you're paying him whatever you need to pay him. You're not letting Joe Burrow walk out of your building. Number 5, I had Jalen Hurts. So number 5, I very famously, I had Stafford here, but with the context of Stafford is now another year older, and Jalen Hurts just beat him in the playoffs, I don't think I would be being honest if I didn't have Hurts in my top 5 right now. And he just won a Super Bowl. He's been to 2 Super Bowls. Say what you want. Tush push. Doesn't throw well enough. 2 Super Bowls in 4 years. With a head coach that some of us aren't even sure we like, let alone love. Yes, this roster is incredibly talented, but Hurts, the results are the results. And right now, if you were to say if this was like wrestling and you had to earn a belt, he has earned the belt of a top 5 quarterback. 1,000%. Which means number 6, just barely outside of my top 5 now, is Matthew Stafford. I'm really high on Stafford. I think Stafford, with everything that's going on, I mean, like, he had Detroit when they were extremely dysfunctional. He had them relevant, at least. With the Rams, he's obviously gotten to a Super Bowl, won a Super Bowl. This was the only team that didn't get blown out by the Eagles in the playoffs. I think Stafford has a lot to do with that. Again, the disparity between the AFC and the NFC, we just got our first 2 NFC quarterbacks, right? So the top 4 are all AFC guys. The NFC is really, really, the quarterback disparity is huge. And one of the biggest things with Stafford is that he is probably the best pure passer in the conference. Hurts obviously does other things as well, and I think he's just, again, with the resume and the belt, and he just beat him. Hurts deserves to be in that top 5. But Stafford's probably the best pure thrower and the best pure passer in the entire conference. So Stafford would be my number 6. Now, this is where I'm going to start having reservations about who I'm willing to pay whatever to. Hurts obviously won a Super Bowl. Get him signed. Gets what? The top 4 guys are kind of in a class of themselves. Hurts just won a Super Bowl. He has the belt. I would pay him. Stafford, this is probably unfair because this is a technicality. I think Stafford only has a few years left, so if you told me I had to do Stafford 2 years, $120 million to finish out his career, I would do it. But that's with the expectation and knowledge that I only have to do this for 2 more years. Herbert's at 7. Again, the talent is obviously there. I need something on your resume. Herbert's already got one of the $55 million deals. I would need something on your resume before I'm willing to go even farther with you to get another $55 or $60 million by the time this is up contract. Like, if Herbert gets to his next contract and has still not won a single playoff game, I'm going to have some real reservation about signing him. Obviously, the arm talent, obviously, the overall talent is there. He's had success in the NFL. He looks the part. He's 6'5". He's got the arm. But if we're going into contract number 2, and I've already paid you the $55+ million, and I still have no playoff success, I'm going to have some concerns. Not saying I wouldn't do it, and if you're the Chargers, you probably will pay him anyway, because, again, are you going to let Herbert walk out the building? Not likely. But if I have to pay him $60+ million a year and I still have no playoff wins, I'm going to have some reservations. Number 8, Jared Goff. I think we have to include Goff in the top 10. I'm not sure. This is weird because I don't know if I would pick him over either of the guys I have a 9 or 10 if you were to ask me, like, build a franchise with. But the reality is he's been to a Super Bowl with the Rams. He had the Lions as the 1 seed in an extremely competitive NFC North, an extremely competitive NFC. Yes, they have talent. Yes, a lot of people are going to tell you the Lions are more of a culture than a quarterback thing. Running game, defense, all that good stuff. Not switch to defense, but the running game, tough guys, the culture that they built in Detroit. But I also don't feel like you can leave Goff off the top 10 list. And again, similar to Hurts, if you were to just say, does your resume or have you earned the belt of being this high? I think Jared Goff has earned the belt of being a top 10 quarterback. Would I want to pay him $60+ million? I would have a lot of reservations about it. These are the guys who I'm going to have a lot of reservations. Like Herbert, again, Hurts because of what he just did, I would give it to him. Stafford because of age. But Herbert, because I don't have the playoff success, would make me skeptical. And Goff, because I think your resume says you're top 10, but I'm not sure I actually would just eye test you and go, oh yeah, you're clearly one of the 10 best guys. You're clearly worth a blank check as a quarterback. Number 9 is CJ. Now, my 9 and 10 are probably going to be a little controversial here because I think in people's eyes, they've already moved this guy above him. But look, what CJ Stroud's done in 2 years, 2 playoff wins, I don't think people realize how bad. I know Houston had a disappointing season. I get it. But I don't think people realize how bad Houston was just 2 years ago before Stroud got there. And the guy I have at 10, who I think a lot of people have already put above CJ, it just did what CJ did the year prior. And so I don't want to be a victim of the moment. I thought CJ was headed towards top 5, top 6 status. Like, if you would ask me at this time last year, I probably would have had CJ around that Stafford-Herbert area, or above Stafford and Herbert potentially, because I thought what he did with a franchise that was that bad, him able to come right in, immediately have success, I thought was beyond impressive. But CJ, I would have at 9 right now because he did have a disappointing season, and they just traded away his left tackle. We'll see what they do coming back this year. I'm still a huge CJ Stroud fan, but the facts are the facts, and I'm not sure I can put him much higher than currently. And at number 10, of course, is Bo Nix. I'm just kidding. I would overrate Bo, but at number 10, the offensive rookie of the year, Jaden Daniels. Look, I think a lot of people are going to put Jaden above CJ right now because we just saw what he did this season. But remember, Jaden is basically where CJ was last year. I get it. They were in the NFC Championship game. CJ didn't technically to the AFC Championship game. But I think that Lions victory is a little fluky long term. I don't think they were better than the Lions. I don't think they were one of the 4 best teams in football at the end of the year, even though they were in the championship game and they got smacked in the championship game. But you can't deny what he did as a rookie immediately coming into the NFL. I'm not opposed to putting guys who are that great that early in the top 10. Again, I would have had CJ borderline top 6 last year. But I do need to see a little bit more. And for both him and CJ, would I pay them blank check? No. Would I pay him 60? CJ, I want to see one more season. Jaden, also I'd like to see one more season. Again, Jaden, there's going to be some injury concerns there. But if you were to just ask me, these would be my current top 10 quarterbacks. A guy like Baker is a just missed out. He's probably 11 or 12. There's a handful of guys. But after definitively that top 4, who I think are all blank checks, Hurts because of what he just did and Stafford because of age, there's not a lot of guys who I'm just blank checking, giving $50, $60 million to. I'm aware guys like Jordan Love and Tua have already been paid that, and also Trevor Lawrence, but it doesn't mean I personally agree with it. And I say all that to say, between the ranking and the earlier conversation, is I would have so many reservations about paying Brock Purdy $55 to almost $60 million, because where does Purdy fall in these lists? Because he's not top 10. And I think you get a couple more guys before you get to him. So he's top 15. And are we just going to say that the whole top half of the league of quarterbacks deserves to be paid like that? I don't agree with that. So this is my actual concern with paying Purdy. But again, I want to be very clear here. The good teams will figure it out. The Chiefs can pay Mahomes if they want because they draft well. The Bills, same. The Ravens, same. The Bengals, this is why they missed the playoffs. They did pay their guy, who I think is worth it, but they still missed the playoffs. Hurts, they can pay him and still put a team around him. Stafford can still pay him, put a team around him. Herbert, we're going to see what him and Jim Harbaugh trying to get him in the Hall of Fame does. Jared Goff, the Lions paid him, built a great team around him. And then we're going to see, obviously, with CJ and Jaden Daniels, as they eventually start to get these contracts, see where they end up. But these are my top 10. My just viewpoint on where I think quarterbacks, if they should be paid the obnoxiously large amount of money that they get. And so, yeah, we're going to take a quick break here. More Hard Foul when we return. Back to I appreciate everybody today. So, in my top, we're going to see what him and Jim Harbaugh trying to get him in the Hall of Fame does. And then we're going to see, obviously, with CJ and Jaden Daniels, as they eventually start to get these contracts, see where they end up. But these are my top 10. My just viewpoint on where I think quarterbacks, if they should be paid the obnoxiously large amount of money that they get. And so, yeah. trying to get him in the Hall of Fame does. Jared Goff, the Lions paid him, built a great team around him. And then we're going to see, obviously, with CJ and Jaden Daniels as I'm gonna get this the trade. Adam Silver got a veto. Adam don't do much, but Adam, if you do something, you get this the trade. You got a veto. But I'm gonna propose it anyway. I'm gonna send LaMelo and 2 first-rounders for Ja.
Ja who? Rule? LaMelo and 2 first-rounders for Ja.
And I'm gonna re-up with Miles Bridges. I know he just signed a contract extension, but I'm re-upping again.
That nigga said we going to take Tupac off of death row and put him on Cash Money. Like, nigga, what?
Listen, I don't want John Morant and Miles Bridges knowing near each other.
You put that nigga on what's the shit called? You put him on fucking Jay Prince label.
Rap a lot.
He put him on Rap a Lot. That nigga took him off. He took him off Death Row and put him on Rap a Lot.
Adam, who says no? Who says no?
I'm calling that shit gangland.
The police, nigga.
Oh man, gotta get your laps in the morning. So, and I wasn't gonna spend a whole lot of time talking about this, but there is conversation obviously around what do teams do next. I spoke in the first hour about the younger teams, what they should not do, which is don't blow up your core for a star. Just don't do it. Now, a team that already has done this, and it worked out for them. Now, they weren't necessarily blowing up a core for a star. They went all in on stars, though, is the LA Clippers. And the LA Clippers, I think, are in the weirdest spot because they employ the weirdest superstar in sports. So, Kawhi's amazing, right? We all know this. Kawhi Leonard is amazing. Kawhi Leonard is as good, maybe besides exactly Giannis, as good of a two-way player as we have in the sport. Offensively, can be a superstar, and defensively, not the player he once was due to injury, but still an incredible defensive player. And so, but you have to figure out what's going to work with Kawhi. Now, James Harden is going to get a lot of flack, and he deserves it. He has just not been even a remotely good playoff performer. I know they were killing him all yesterday, and they were putting up the graphics, all of his horrible playoff stats. But I'm going to shoot Harden a little bit of bail right now. And I'm not the James Harden guy. And I said yesterday, we just totally need to kill the whole James Harden versus Dwayne Wade argument because it's not real. But Harden is almost the perfect star for Kawhi. You just need somebody else in the playoffs. What do I mean by that? So Harden uniquely is set to work with Kawhi because Harden will be great in the regular season. He will be. Harden will show up on ballots as an all-NBA guy. It's probably 13, but he will be an all-NBA guy, which is incredible at this stage of his career that he is still that level of player. And during the regular season, he is still, when Kawhi, who is going to miss time, you're not going to ask Kawhi to play 82 games, you're not going to Kawhi to be there, in the foxhole every single night, playing 30-plus minutes a game. That's not who he is. That's not who his body has allowed him to be. He obviously finished this season healthy, which was great, and great for the league, because, again, he is one of the best players. But he's not going to be an 82, an 80, or even really like a high 70s or low 70s a game guy. He's going to be in that 50 to 60 range, and you want him healthy for the playoffs. So the Clippers just really need to approach this as, James, we'll let you continue to be you. At least this version of you that currently exists. You're no longer the Houston James Harden. You're probably not even the Brooklyn James Harden anymore. But this Philadelphia and Clipper version of James Harden, we will allow you to continue to be that during the regular season. And then we need you to be a bench player in the playoffs. We need you to be a guy who will bring you off the bench. You can run with the second unit. But we cannot, it's just the reality is you cannot rely on James Harden to be your second best player in the playoffs. Because that's why they lost the series. And not just to slam on James Harden or to say, it's all his fault. But look at the second best player on the Nuggets, Jamal Murray. In that series alone, we saw the 40-point game We saw multiple nights, 25-plus points. When Jokic wasn't great, and Jokic wasn't great in Game 7, when they needed their second guy to step up, he did. You cannot, at this point, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. You cannot expect James Harden to be the guy or the second best guy if you have true title aspirations. What you can expect, though, is Harden to be almost perfect to be the second guy over the course of an 82-game regular season, because to his credit, Harden plays. And he plays pretty much every single night. And in the regular season, he is still, again, an all-NBA level performer. So because you have the uniqueness of Kawhi, and he's not going to be an 80-game guy, Harden still, I want to give a little bit of, and I'm not the Harden guy, but a little bit of praise and a little bit of, hey, look, you have a guy. Harden's kind of perfect for Kawhi. So before we get into this all trade Harden, get rid of Harden, get him out of here, remember, during the regular season, Harden was there more than Kawhi, especially to start. And Harden was the all-NBA guy. Kawhi Leonard's not going to be on the all-NBA. And a lot of that's the injuries. We understand Harden's not better than Kawhi. But because Kawhi's not going to give you the amount of games, you need someone like Harden who can fill in and be that guy. Another team, the other LA team, is the Lakers. And yesterday it was caught on camera. Luka, JJ Redick, and I'm blanking on his name. There's a bunch of Lakers executives Rob Pelinka as well, who were at this dinner with Luka Doncic. And LeBron said, when they asked, what about Luka's decision? And I knew you're going to retire. And he said, look, in regards to Luka, that's not my job. And he's 1,000% right. And LeBron had a good answer to this, I think, which is, I'm 40. This is LeBron talking. Luka's 26. Loved playing with Luka. Luka's a great teammate. Luka's obviously a guy who LeBron is able to kind of rest on the court or coast more or get just more rest actually on the bench because Luka can carry your offense. So LeBron, I think, loves playing with Luka. But the reality is, one's 40, one's 26. They do not have the same timeline. They do not have the same timeline whatsoever. LeBron has a son who's on the team who's 7 years younger than Luka. Like, totally different timelines, totally different lives. So LeBron is going to make whatever decision he feels is best for him. Now, if that's continuing to play, cool. LeBron is obviously nowhere near the player he once was, but he'll be going into year 23. What do you expect? The man's 41. Luka, and by all accounts, everyone's reporting, while he did have his heart broken by Dallas, he is totally committed to LA. He is totally committed to winning a championship with the Lakers, all these things, and that all sounds nice. But the only way you're going to convince Laker fans that you are totally committed, and that's what I'm assuming this meeting was about, is you have to be, we keep seeing all these highlights getting thrown around of Luka in his rookie year, Luka before American Food, Luka back in the day. Those highlights shouldn't look like they're a decade old. You're 26. What you did first year in the NBA when you're only 26 years old should not look like it's from a decade ago. So, to the Luka point of it all, LeBron shouldn't be worried about what Luka does. If LeBron will be plug and play for the rest of his career, however many, the next year, 2 years, however long he wants to play. He will just be able to play whatever role the Lakers want him to have. Luka, to be the actual franchise superstar, you cannot be Shaq. You can't be the guy who we all know is so supremely talented, could be the best player in the league, could dominate the league, could score as much as you want, and be overweight and fat and not really committed. This is why the Lakers, back then, they traded Shaq and they kept Kobe. One was committed. Even if at that time Shaq was the better player, Kobe was more committed. Kobe was more intense. Kobe was in shape. Shaq was not in shape. Shaq was not as committed. Shaq was not as intense. And the Lakers said, look, we're not going to tie ourselves down to the guy who is more likely to break down because he doesn't take his health as serious, because he doesn't take his conditioning as serious, because he's not as intense when it comes to the sport of basketball. So LeBron, Luka, you're not on the same timeline. LeBron is going to be plug and play the rest of his career. Luka needs to get in shape if they want anything to happen here. And be mindful, and I know Laker players, like, or Laker fans, like, oh, we're going to trade for this guy, we can trade for this guy. Be mindful of how other GMs who just saw, now, not everybody has a Luka Doncic to trade, but how much Nico Harrison has been dragged since the Luka trade and other trades historically that have happened with the LA Lakers. Teams aren't just going to be lining up to trade you guys. This is going to have to be a free agency decision, and you're going to be pretty much up against it with the cap because LeBron is still well paid. Luka's going to require a new contract. He's going to get paid to the. It's not the super max that because he hasn't been with the Lakers long enough, but he's going to get a max. Like, you're paying Austin Reeves. So this theoretical big, I hear them talking about, oh, we're going to get Miles Turner. Miles Turner is going to cost a lot of money. Miles Turner is a really good defensive player, defensive big who could shoot threes. You see what he's doing for Indiana right now. And there's all these other hypotheticals out there. But Miles Turner is going to cost a lot of money. You're not going to have nearly as much salary cap because you're already paying two guys max, paying Austin Reeves really good money. You're going to need if you decide to move off Jackson Hayes, another guy you can get in that Jackson Hayes, that average annual value, that kind of contract. So, and a lot of teams are just be lining up to trade with you. I know they always put out this. In the Luka trade, again, there's so many things there where I'm not going to say it was clearly an outlier and it was clearly a moment that happened, but now it has Laker fans who are already delusional, back in super delusion mode about, oh, we're going to get this guy, going to get this guy. This is a broken team because of the difference of your superstars, and your actual in-prime superstar is just not in shape and has not shown 100% commitment. So, Lakers, to fix yourself this offseason, this is how we fix the LA teams. Like, Harden, we're not going to kill Harden because Harden's kind of perfect for Kawhi in terms of an 82-game regular season. You just need somebody else in the playoffs. And the Lakers, you just need to get Luka in shape, man. When we come back, closing statements. being multiple about this. And we are back to close it out. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for joining me, especially at this new morning time. I know it is early. We are here 4 to 6 a.m. Don't forget to check out the other shows we have here on HardFoul. Group chat every Sunday, A&M every Friday morning. You guys will get that, as well as 90 Feet Thursday nights. And yeah, that's all the show. We do a lot of shows here. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 shows. Good time though. Love talking. Enjoy getting to talk with my friends. Want to change it for the world, man. So I want to end today's show on this, which is, it's always a fun conversation of who has the most to gain, who is going to be elevated or their perception changed the most based on what is currently going on in the sport if they continue to have success. So obviously in the NFL or in the NBA right now, who would have the most to gain from a deep playoff run, which I don't consider the second round a deep playoff run. I think once we get to the conference finals, then it's okay. That's a deep playoff run. So who would have the most to gain? Jokic, I think it's tough to make the argument for. He's already considered the best player in the sport. Another ring would make him, move him up the all-time list, but I think a lot of people already have him somewhere in that probably top 20 range. So I don't think there's a lot to gain here. Again, I think the very clear and obvious answer is Anthony Edwards. And I've been on this for a couple weeks now. If Anthony Edwards wins an NBA title, he's the face of the league. And I want people to understand how crazy that is. We don't have that many faces of the league. We know them all because they are that impactful, they are that important, they are that great. But Russell isn't as great as he is. Russell and Wilt weren't really faces of the league. The league wasn't really established like that. You don't really get like a true face of the league until you get to Magic, Bird, and then you go from Magic and Bird to Michael, and then you go from Michael to Hakeem's kind of there, but I don't think Hakeem, because he's international, I don't think Hakeem was really a face, quote-unquote, of the league. Then you've got Kobe and Shaq. Again, Duncan was great, but Duncan was never the face of the league. And then you had LeBron forever. Steph's kind of in there. And we're looking for that next guy. Again, Giannis, multiple MVPs, never been face of the league. Jokic, multiple MVPs, never been face of the league. Anthony Edwards, without an MVP, but if he gets a ring, knocking out the people he would have to knock out, how do you not say he's the face of the NBA? And again, I named off, 7 guys? So we have 7 guys that have potentially been the face of the NBA, and Anthony Edwards would be joining that list? Because the face of the NBA is a combination of not just how great you are, but it's how popular you are. And that's why a lot of the European guys and the international guys don't quite get there, because they don't have the popularity to be face of the league. But Ant would have the popularity. He would have the play style. He would have the achievements, his resume. It would all be there ready for him to take, and he would be the guy. So if you were to ask me who has the quote-unquote most to gain in these playoffs, again, like someone like Halliburton, yeah, you could argue, okay, he would go from the most overrated player as voted to a NBA champion, and that's huge. But I don't think that jump is as big. Again, Jokic would go from like all-time great to even more all-time great. SGA would be an MVP and a champion, which would put him in a new class. But again, I don't think people would move him above. I think people have him just below like that Luka, Giannis, Jokic tier anyway. I don't think he would go up with a championship, maybe above Luka, depending on how you want to feel about it. Ant going from all-star, really beloved player to a position I truly feel only 7 or 8 guys have ever had all time. That's the biggest gap, and that's the biggest jump, and that's the guy with the most to gain. And with that being said, appreciate you guys as always. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. Don't forget, check out all the